Assalamu alaikum everyone, you're watching SamiSpeaks. My name is Sami T. Naseem. It's good to be back with you all again. We've got a big show for you all this week. We've got a lot to get into, a lot to discuss. We did have a bit of time off. I'm going to get into why that was later on in the show. But nevertheless, like I said, big show. We've got a lot to get into today, a lot to discuss. So what are we going to be having a look at? The Tates are arrested in Miami, Florida, right? So they are facing additional charges brought by the British state. And as a result, they're facing extradition facilitated by the United States. I read a report by Axios, which I think is interesting, about the Trump administration's reaction to this, Marco Rubio's reaction to this, all of that. And I'm also going to get into the UAE angle. Would this have happened if Tate was in the UAE? And then also the Islamic angle too, because I think there's a lot of interesting things to touch on there. What else are we going to be discussing? Andy Burnham has his first full week as Prime Minister. He's made Prime Minister early on in the week, and he's now had his first full week. And to tell you the truth, I'm quite impressed. I'm not going to lie, I'm quite impressed. I think he's done a phenomenal first week. I'm going to get into why, and we're going to have a look at all of that good stuff too, inshallah. What is our featured story, our featured segment, our featured topic today? It is the Rape Gang Inquiry Report. And it's not just the Rape Gang Inquiry Report. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go over each and every point of this report and tell you why it is one big, massive, blatant, just monumental lie. That's what it is. It's a massive, massive lie. It's a massive fabrication. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. There's one specific number that we are going to scrutinize, and we're going to tell you why you shouldn't trust this number, okay? And we're also going to get into the actual victim testimony, the whistleblower testimony, and why that's also horrendous and condemnable and disgusting and abhorrent and terrible also. So let's do that, inshallah. Okay, so the Rape Gang Inquiry Report is released by rupertlowe on the 16th of June, so about a month ago now. I don't know if it's just on Twitter he releases it, but I see it on Twitter. Like I said, it's just massive. It does 50 million plus views, 100,000 plus likes, if not more. And people are saying it's groundbreaking, it's massive. rupertlowe goes and gives a copy to each and every member of parliament, and they read it, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, right? And it's been a month now. It's been a whole month. And I haven't saw one person, not even one person, okay, pick apart the report about the fact that it's not even a government report. It's not an official report, should I say. It's not a government report. It's not a statutory report. It has no legal backing, no government backing, nothing. It's crowdfunded, okay? No oversight. There's no checks, nothing, okay? But apart from that, because, you know, it's still, something can still be true if it hasn't been looked at by a third party. But even negating that, push that to the side, there is a number that people are throwing around, 250,000 number, which relates to 250,000 white girls being victims of South Asian, particularly Pakistani grooming gangs, okay? That's the claim. It turns out this claim is completely and utterly bogus. It's completely baseless. It's completely, just completely false, riddled with falsehood. Why? I'm going to tell you exactly why. You'd think 250,000, they've got 250,000 victims who have come forward, or they can count 250,000 victims. No, that's not it whatsoever. The actual number is about 3,000. But what they've done is they've looked at three areas, like hotspots, if you like. Telford, Rotherham, and Oxford. So they've looked at those three areas, and they've got about 1,000 each, more or less, victims of, not even grooming gangs, by the way. These are coming from like separate, these aren't victims coming forward specifically for this report. These are separate CSE reports, child sexual exploitation reports. So they've took the data from those CSE reports, which are about 1,000 each area, more or less, and what they do is they times it by the population size for each area. So they come out with three numbers which are massively inflated because they've times it by the 70 million population size in the UK. And they've gone and, because of that, got three individual numbers, a slightly smaller one, sort of middle one, and then a larger one. And they took the midpoint between the smaller one and the large one, and they've got the 250,000. So this 250,000 number is not 250,000 victims, right? It's not an official number. It's a fake number. It's a fabricated number. They took a midpoint, okay? They've took three hotspots, which are hotspots, and they've applied it to the entirety of the UK. They're called hotspots for a reason. You don't look at the three most crime-ridden places in the UK and then apply that to the entirety of the UK. Then the whole UK is committing crime, which is obviously not the case. So it's completely bogus. It's completely baseless. And in fact, it's worse. Because like I said, right? Like I said, these are child sexual exploitation cases. These are not rape gang cases, right? These are CSE cases. And even more so, what's even more important here is that these aren't specifically South Asian. That 250,000 number is not just South Asian or Pakistani or Muslim, whatever you want to call it. No, it's just everyone. And the worst part, if it is everyone, which it is, because if you look at those CSE reports, there's nothing to do with ethnicity or anything. It's just the entirety of CSE cases in that town or city. CSE cases in that town or city, but there's no it's everyone. It doesn't separate ethnicity. Okay, so if we understand, which is the truth, that the majority of sexual assault and rape and child sexual exploitation are committed predominantly by white men. Rape gangs, put that aside, right? But just sexual assault in general, predominantly committed by white men in the UK, we'll actually find, right, that this 250,000 number is actually majority white. It's majority white, and yet they're calling it a rape gang inquiry report and applying it to Muslims. Oh my goodness. I honestly can't believe they have the guts to do this. I mean, in what world? To make matters even worse, and this is, it doesn't really mean much, but it just shows the flawed sampling here. Lord Pearson is who sort of amalgamated all of this data in 2019. It's nothing even to do with the Rape Gang Inquiry report. Rupert Lowe took this report that Lord Pearson did, who is a member of the House of Lords, who, by the way, is like very sort of good pals. Close confidant of his is Tommy Robinson. He's ex-leader of UKIP, the UKIP party, right? So we know who this type of guy is. He's been extremely critical of Islam, right? And he has his own biases. So of course this number's come about, right? But they look at Rotherham, they look at Telford, they look at Oxford. The Oxford population size that they use, right? They don't use the population size of Oxford. They use the population size of Oxfordshire, which is much, much larger, which is a county compared to the Oxford city. So they use the population size of Oxfordshire, but the CSE size of Oxford. So they're making the denominator massively larger, so they come out with a higher percentage. What are the percentages? The percentage in Rotherham is about 0.07%. In Telford, it's about I think 0.058% or 0.58%, and in Oxford, it is 0.25%. Which, by the way, these three numbers are all below national average. National average is about 4%, let's say. So it's not just lower than the national average. They're using everyone. They're not just using South Asian ethnicity or Muslims or whatever. They're using everyone. And we know that sexual assault is predominantly committed in the UK by white men. So this 3,000 number that's coming from these 3 towns is predominantly white men, right? And as soon as you realize all of this, you'll realize that it's all one massive lie. I'm not negating the victim testimony. There is victim testimony in this report, and you read it and it's absolutely horrific. It's horrifying. It's terrible. It's not just, I condemn it. Oh, who cares? If I condemn it, what difference is that going to make? If we find these people, right, and they have been found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, not in a kangaroo court, in a proper criminal court in the United Kingdom, and it's past that threshold of beyond a reasonable doubt, what would I do? I'd stone these guys to death. As Islam would say, you'd stone these guys to death. Whatever excuse they want to make, and people will come in the comments. And by the way, you can't argue about all of those stats. Completely truthful. All of that is the complete truth. But they'll say, oh, well, those that have, they're using the Quran. They're misinterpreting the Quran. And if they say so and so, oh, well, you know, I'm allowed to do this. No. People will come out with that verse where it says, you know, those that thy right hand poses, right? Those that thy right hand possess. That's got nothing to, that's to do with war. That's to do with prisoners of war. It's got nothing to do with current times. So don't try and come at me with this verse. It's got nothing to do with it. And if these guys were in an Islamic country and they tried to use that excuse in an Islamic country, what do you think would happen to them? Do you think the Islamic jurist would say, well, there's nothing we can do now? No. The same punishment. He's coming up with an excuse. It doesn't mean a thing. He's misinterpreting the Quran. And in fact, that's a vile crime, a vile misinterpretation in Islam. So he won't just be held accountable for his actions in this life, but we believe as Muslims he'll be held accountable for his actions in the hereafter. So yes, it needs to be condemned, but it needs to be more than condemned. Let's do capital punishment, guys. Let's do no problem with me. No problem with me or any of the Muslims. No problem. Let's get rid of them. No use. But you can't be throwing around this fake number and think you'll get away with it. Absolutely not. It's a fake number. And also the victims in these 3 areas, these 3 towns or cities, Oxford's a city, but the town of Telford and Rotherham, these cases and the ones that are declared victims, they haven't actually gone to court. This hasn't gone to court and they've actually been found, or should I say the suspect has been found guilty. So I'm not trying to minimize what these victims have to say, but a lot of these right wing will say, oh, the women aren't telling the truth. We're going to get to Andrew Tate in a moment, but they'll say, oh, the women aren't telling the truth. Not even Andrew Tate. They don't even like Andrew Tate, but Russell Brand and Julian Assange and whoever else has these accusations. And they'll say, oh, women are lying. But we believe the women in this situation, circumstance, or the children. You know, children can lie too, right? But even if you take the numbers as they are, it's absolutely, it's riddled with error, riddled with falsehood, and they know what they're doing. The right wing are going to eat up the slop because this is the problem. They come out with this argument. Oh, the children are obsessed with their phones and they can't get off their phones. Oh, it's the damn phone, as you know, a lot of the Gen Z will know. The boomers are equally as obsessed with their phone. They're believing all this rubbish. They're believing it at face value. Do you think any of these people have actually read the 219-page document? How many do you think? Probably less than 1%. And this is the problem. And even the ones that read it, they're not going to have a look at the footnotes. You know, this is not an official report. It has no legal backing, no government backing. It's like me doing an essay in university, handing it to my lecturer, and then before getting my grade back, just being like, look, this is the full thing and it's fantastic and there's no errors in it and it's first class. No, bring it to someone, an independent party who'll do some oversight, and they'll tell you, what is this number, this 250,000 number? How have you got it? It's a joke. But we could speak about it all day. They're not going to like what I have to say, but it's the truth. You have to contend with the truth here, okay? Your report is completely baseless, fabricated, and it's riddled with error. It's riddled with falsehood, whether intentional or not, I don't know, okay? I don't know. But the reality here is that don't just trust things at face value. Don't, okay? Okay. Andy Burnham is elected Prime Minister, or not elected, but he's made Prime Minister early on in the week. And now he's done his first full 5 days, Monday through Friday. And you know what? Like I said, suffice to say, I'm quite pleased. I'm quite surprised, I guess you could say, because I think he's done quite a good job. I don't think he's done a fantastic job, but I think it's surprising for a person in government in the UK to actually be liked, right? And it seems like, we already discussed on the show before, and by the way, I'm not a huge fan of Andy Burnham. I've seen him about, he's my previous college, he was there all the time, and people liked him. I always thought he's a bit plain, a bit basic, but I think when you have someone like Keir who is so bad, right, and who is so wooden and robotic, when you have someone like Andy Burnham who is actually a bit more charming, right, a bit more likable, a bit more characterful, a bit more of a character than, say, Keirstarmer, right? It's quite surprising, and I think people are kind of gelling with him a little bit. And more so than just that, he does his speech. I'm quite impressed with the speech. He does it with no teleprompter, no notes, nothing, right? Not even a stand, okay? And he stands there and he speaks to the crowd and he does all of this. And by the way, that should be the standard. The standard should be no notes. If we have all of these, I'm not going to say myself, but if we have all of these podcasters and guys with shows on the internet, independent media, and they're able to do these shows and these podcasts without notes, then why? Shouldn't the people we elect into office be much better than that? And yet they can't even say a sentence without making errors or anything. They need a script. Like what are we doing here? So I guess that's good from that angle. I'm quite impressed there. Quite a good speech. He says he's going to end rough sleeping, which by the way is just a claim. So he'll say, oh, I'm going to do this and that. Hasn't happened yet, okay? But he's claiming he's going to end rough sleeping. But more so than just that, what does he actually do? In his first week, he implements a 20% business cut on pubs, on clubs, on music venues. And I guess that's good for hospitality in a sense. So people are liking him for that. He also, the £2 bus fare that he introduced in Manchester, he is now saying that he's going to implement that across the entire UK, right? All areas, all cities, all towns. Everyone's going to have a £2 bus fare cap, right? I guess also quite good, I guess. It all sort of accumulates into one, and people are seeing that if this is just the first week, what have we got? What have we got laid ahead? And then lastly, he also does a electricity cut also. So he brings VAT from 5% to 0%. So essentially slashes VAT on energy bills. I think that's quite good. I've read the numbers. Apparently, it doesn't really save the average household much, like £50 a year, which isn't even, I don't even think, much really in the grand scheme of things, of course. But I guess he's trying, right? He's making a concerted effort in a sense. But more so than that, I think what I'm impressed with by Burnham here is that and also actually before we get onto closing thoughts, he does on Friday the first day of number 10 North, right? which is something he said he would do when he was facing leadership contests in the Labour Party. He said he was going to do number 10 North, and he's going to open it up, and it's going to be the Manchester version of number 10. And I was like, okay, that's a pretty good idea, right? And not even a week passes, right? Day 5, and he's got it open, and he's there in Manchester, and he holds a meeting there, a government meeting. I think the public reception of this is quite good. I think to see things happening fast in government is, we're not used to it, right? And not even if we look elsewhere in the United States, we're not used to things happening fast. And for him to have opened it this quick, and by the way, it's not that big of a deal because they're actually using a temporary location. I think it's a GCHQ facility, or near a GCHQ facility. So it's like they've got the security there to be able to hold these sort of discussions which need a good level of security. So he opens it in a temporary location, right, which I think is on Lloyd Street in Manchester City Centre. And he's planning to move it to Ancoats when it is built, right? So I think that's going to be in 2032. So that's what we're used to in the UK, this type of time delay. But I guess, face value, it's about getting the public rallying behind you. And it seems like the public at the moment are starting to rally behind Burnham, are starting to like him. He hasn't even brought up immigration once, and that is just making the dumb far right seethe as a result. And they're angry. Oh, he hasn't brought... Nigel Farage is like, because obviously he's running in Clacton, running for the by-election in Clacton again. He's saying, Andy Burnham hasn't brought up immigration once. The UK is starting to get sick of the immigration thing, right? Yeah, granted, we discussed it and net migration's down. We discussed it in the past. Yeah. But they're sick of it. When that quote, "It's the economy, stupid," that's kind of what Andy Burnham is focusing on, and that's a good thing, right? He's focusing in on the economy, and that's fantastic, right? So he needs to keep doing that, and I think he'll have a real shot at being up there in terms of the 21st century. I mean, he could be the best since Blair, right? I mean, there's not much competition, but it seems like his first week he's done excellent. If he continues this, then this is a massive statement. 2029 comes, because I don't think there's going to be any snap election. I could see Labour winning in 2029. You've got to think about it like this. We had 14 years of Conservative governance. It's going to be now Labour for as long as from 24 to 29, that's 5 years. I wouldn't be surprised if we look at the history of Labour Conservative split. I mean, 2029, obviously we would all say right now, if there's an election right now, Labour wouldn't win, but I think there's definitely a strong argument to be made that Labour could stand a very good chance in 2029 if Burnham keeps this up. Like we've said on the show when he ran in Makerfield, okay? He is, the polls say he is the most popular politician in the UK right now. The most popular. That's what the polls say. He's got the best approval rating, right? So I think if he keeps this up, he could have a good chance in 2029. The Labour Party could have a good chance of, I guess, sustaining the majority. I think it'll probably go down, but, just getting a majority, getting back into government, and then they'll do another 5 years. And then maybe after that, as to what I would want, I've floated around, I've been saying now for quite some time, a Conservative reform coalition. I don't think Conservative obviously have the popularity that they once had, so I don't think they probably could get enough to get a majority. Reform is popular right now, so I think it could be maybe Reform with the most, and then them joining up with the Conservatives to do coalition, maybe the opposite. Whatever happens, we'll see, right? But I've been floating that around for a few years now. But if Burnham keeps this up, perhaps we could see Labour winning in 2029, which is not something I thought I'd be saying, but, there you go. what is our final story, our final topic today is Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate are arrested in Miami, Florida, okay? They are arrested by US Marshals. They come up to the brothers and they arrest them for additional charges brought by the British state. They are being extradited, okay? This isn't something that is 100%, but it's very likely that the brothers are going to be extradited to the UK to face their charges, all sorts of, I don't think human trafficking, but rape, I would presume, and I think something to do with indecent images of children pornography, which looks really bad for their name. So what do I think, right? So like I said, the brothers are arrested last week, I think it was, late last week, Andrew and Tristan, and they are facing extradition. I don't know, right? I don't think it really matters what I think, because whether I think they did or they didn't, if the UK wants them to be found guilty of these crimes, then they'll be found guilty of these crimes, right? If they think that, yeah, because Tate says all sorts of things. You know, he says, I mean, everything, he really speaks very unambiguously, or ambiguous, should I say, and he speaks like nothing's very concrete with what he's saying. So we can't really tell. He says, oh, they came up to me and they said, if you just shut up, we'll give you $50 million and you can just shut up, stop saying what you're saying. Did that really happen? I don't know, right? You can't really tell. But whether or not I think he did these things, if the UK, the British state wants for him to be, look at Julian Assange, right? If they want for him to be found guilty of these crimes and be in prison for the rest of his life, should I say, then that will happen, right? That will happen. I guess the more interesting angle here is I read a report by Axios that the brothers, Trump had once no involvement in the brothers' extradition. He's not going to block it. He's not going to do anything. And what I found more interesting here is that Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, he said, apparently, this report claims that a source heard Rubio, or Rubio thinks, should I say, that these guys are scum. That's the quote. Rubio thinks these guys are scum. So, and I think that's probably true, to be honest with you. In terms of what Trump thinks, I don't think Trump really probably has a belief. I think Trump only cares about what will keep him in power, keep him popular. So Trump cares about loyalty to him, but he doesn't care about being loyal to others, okay? Because when you look at what Tate has done, I don't want to say he's done loads for Trump, but he's very much aligned himself with the MAGA right just before, as Trump got shot, really. Because I think he thought that, he was facing all of these problems in Romania, and he thought, if I align myself with Tate, maybe I'll get out. And look what happens. Trump wins the election before he's even inaugurated. I think that's the moment where the Tates' house arrest, them being on house arrest, is lifted, and they're giving back their passports, and they fly to Florida. And the moment they fly to Florida, a trouble starts, and DeSantis calls them names, and the AG gets involved. And they go to the UAE, and nothing happens. So this is the thing, right? Tate reverted to Islam, or at least he said he reverted to Islam. And in regards to how he has been since, I mean, I'm not going to get into that. But if we just look at it, he goes to the UAE, there's no problem. He goes to the US, there's a problem as soon as he arrives. He goes to Romania, there's problems everywhere. UK's after him, but he goes to the UAE, the Muslim country, and they leave him alone, okay? So this is what happens when you take allies in the kuffar, okay? It's not to say that you can't be friends with these individuals or ally yourself with these individuals, but if you make these people your primary allies, they stab you in the back, and that's what's happened, okay? So whatever I think doesn't matter. I think it's very likely that he's going to be extradited, and it's very likely that he will probably perhaps be found guilty and will face life in prison. Think about that. Crazy. But if that's what the British state wants, I mean, look what, like I said, look what happened to Julian Assange. One girl comes and says such and such, and he gets put in prison for however many years, then he gets let out. But, you know, we'll see what happens with Tate here. But yeah, it's been a great show. Like I said, we had a bit of time off. I think we needed sort of, I was going to say it at the outset, but we needed a break because I needed so much. We had so many comments and all of this, and we need to understand what battles we want to fight, right? And I have chosen these far-right individuals are only going to get louder because, like we've discussed with Andy Burnham, right? Andy Burnham comes into power and people are loving him. And the more they feel like they're being neglected and they're not being heard, like think about like a baby, right? A baby wants food, he wants food, he wants food, and nobody's listening to him. He's just only going to get louder. So these far-right are only going to get louder, okay? So what do? As Muslims, they are defaming us, they are lying, they are creating baseless and fabricated numbers and statistics. Are we just going to allow that to be? Are we just going to allow them to completely lie about us? Or are we going to stand up? So this is why it's Islam first. Islam first is completely and utterly going up against our enemies. Whatever you want to call it, our antagonists, I don't care. But they're clearly being antagonistic towards us. With no mercy, by the way. No mercy whatsoever. So you need to join the movement. You need to join Islam first. There's nobody else doing what we're doing. We'll continue to do it, inshallah. But nevertheless, it's been a great show. It's been a great show. I've been Sami T and Naseem as usual. Thank you all very much for watching. And inshallah, I will see you next Sunday. Assalamu alaikum.